Welcome to Alabaster Caverns. Our cave started forming 270 million years ago. We used to be covered up by a shallow inland sea. It was called the Permian Sea. And that sea rose and receded multiple times throughout its life, causing cracks in the rocks on the surface. Those cracks eventually allowed water to seep through and carve away our cave as you'll see it today. Now we're considered a mature cave, meaning we still have water flowing through here and plenty of water still seeping in from above. We've been in this state of the cave for about 100,000 years. He's showing off for it. That being said, we did have a collapse 5 years ago near our main entrance by the gift shop. So we can't go all the way through. So we're going to go about halfway through, turn around, and come back out. Basically, we are waiting on funding to repair that pathway. So until that happens, this is how we have to do it. Now you can touch any of the rocks you see on the pathway, you won't harm them. Just don't climb on or scratch any of those rocks. On the Mohs hardness scale, a diamond is a 10, being the hardest. Alabaster is a 2, which is all the hard rock around you, and your fingernail is a 3. So your fingernail is actually harder than this rock. Okay guys, do y'all have any questions before we get started? Okay. The better you keep up, the further we get to go. Yep, right there. So right up here we have Graffiti Hall. Lots of names on our wall. The oldest name found in the cave is Orlando Moon, May 1st, 1900. Pretty important name right over here, C.L. Klingerman. Mr. Klingerman used to mine the bat guano in here. He'd come in, haul it out by the bucket load. He'd take it 30 miles south of here to Quinlan to the railroad tracks and put it on a train, where he sold it for fertilizer and gunpowder. Now he was sending it to California, and he made $9 a ton off of that bat guano. It was about $400 in total in the early 1900s. And then he bought a car and he drove off the face of the earth. Nobody knows what happened to him. This was his last known job. There's not another record of him. Waterfalls we'll talk about today. Now this particular waterfall has never went dry in the history of the cave. There's actually a natural spring above our head that keeps it fed. There's another waterfall right over here behind me. You can see that wet spot. That waterfall goes dry periodically throughout the year because it's fed by groundwater. And it's just about dry at this point. You can see where the water has seeped through for many years in this area. When you look right down here, you'll see what we call cave coral. That's not actual living coral, it just looks like coral. And that's just mineral buildup in the water over time. And our water looks really clean and clear, almost like you could drink it. I don't recommend drinking good water. It's one of the best natural laxatives there is. You'll make it out of here, I promise. You guys have any questions yet? We call that keyhole though. 2 domes we call called George, and Martha Washington's upside down bathtubs. George is doing real well. All Martha got was a soap dish and a big old crack down the middle. George, yep, there's a bat right there. George, he got a headrest, a footrest, 2 armrests, a soap dish. No big visible cracks in his surface. Now imagine the floor of the cave is up there at the ceiling. At one point it was. Water would get trapped in a small crack and start to spin around in a whirlpool motion. That water would spin around for thousands and thousands of years, carving away at the rock, all while the floor of the cave was also being carved away. So eventually the water level would recede, and then you're left with these large domes. If you follow me to this next one, it's a little different. I'm going to explain it to you guys. Due to its height, partly due to what we call the crown molding along the edges. Now, this bottom area of Cathedral Dome was created by that whirlpool of water spinning around. That crown molding is where the water level receded 3 separate times. Up there at the very top, that was created by a sinkhole. Sinkholes are very common with caves. They can happen above ground, below ground, go all the way through, or nowhere at all. This one doesn't go anywhere. It's no bigger than what we can see. Now, when we drove down that steep hill, we drove into a sinkhole. So, yeah, when we go back outside, take a look at it. We have several active sinkholes on the property right now. Kind of like Swiss cheese around here. Now, up there at the very top, that speckled layer of rock is called Nescatunga gypsum. It is named after Nescatunga, Oklahoma, which is over there by the Salt Plains. I know some of y'all just left there. So that is the second layer of our cave. And if you were to take a hike on the outside edge of the canyon, you're going to see a whitish gray brittle rock. It's called the Shimer layer. It's the outside crust of our cave. That's Nescatunga layer is going to be about 20 to 40 feet below the surface. And then that soft red dirt up there is the flower pot shell. Same dirt we're walking on down here. It gets very compact over time. You can find it in many different layers throughout the cave. And then the rest of the rock we're seeing on tour is called Medicine Lodge gypsum. It's named after Medicine Lodge, Kansas, where it was first studied. You're going to find this type of rock 60 to 80 feet below the surface. We're about 70 feet right now. So that tracks. Now, even though the Nescatunga layer and the Medicine Lodge layer have different names, they're both still considered alabaster. They're the most compact form of gypsum. Now, gypsum is in everything around us. It's just a common mineral. So it's in the rock, the dirt, the water, pretty much everywhere. Now, it's a heavily mined mineral all throughout the United States. They're going to use gypsum in your sheetrock for one. It's also in your toothpaste, and it's a food binder in your chocolate and your ice cream. So if you like chocolate ice cream, you're probably getting a double dose. Now, it's not harmful to us because it's more of a salt mineral than anything. So you could lick the rock, but I don't recommend it. All of the green you see is algae. It's not natural to our cave. It is caused by the artificial lighting system and the humidity level down here. So you're only going to see it wherever that light hits. You can see the shadow there. Now, it would be more harmful for us to actually remove that algae because our rock is so porous and soft. We'd be wiping away the rock and not the algae. Do you guys have any questions about it? So right up here we have a large opening. That is part of our upper chambers. We have 3 separate chambers in here. We have a basement chamber that lies directly below the collapse section. So if you're standing in the middle of the collapse, there's a whole other room below your feet. We call it Aladdin's room. We have the central chamber that we've been walking through this entire time. That upper chamber is where our bats like to have their nursery in the summertime. So most all of our bats have woken up from hibernation, and a lot of them have made their way up here. Some of them will make their way into other areas of the cave, because 70% of this cave is dedicated to the bat population. So you're only seeing a very small percentage of it. 30% of this cave is designed for touring, but we've only seen 20% due to that collapse. Now, in the summer, we have 5 different species of bats. We have cave myotis, which we've seen a few of them hanging around on the walls today. We have the western big ears, the big brown, the tricolored, and in just a few short weeks, the Mexican freetail will join us from Central and South Texas. They're migratory species, so they don't go into hibernation. So they'll start flying up here pretty soon, and they're gonna come back to the same caves every year to raise their babies. Now, in this area, you can see the different colors of alabaster really well. You have the gray, the white, the rust, and the pink just beyond that waterfall. We're very well known for having black alabaster. It is extremely rare. It's found in only 3 caves in the entire world, here, Italy, and China. Unfortunately, our black alabaster was covered up in the lab, so we can't see it right now. But we do have a large chunk up in our museum room. That's something you want to see. That being said, iron deposits are what color the red rock red here. Same with the red dirt, it's all iron deposits. The pink as well, I have that little picture. Now, manganese is the mineral that colors the black alabaster black. Not magnesium, manganese. It's an extremely rare mineral. They used to mine it back in the late 1800s. And they would use it to harden steel. So they'd actually mine it in South America and then ship it up to North America. Now, luckily, they figured out that mineral was hard to come by and they were running low. So they stopped mining that mineral rather quickly. And it hasn't been mined since the early 1900s. So they found other ways to harden their steel. Now, again, it's not used for anything today because it is such a rare mineral. So you won't find it in anything else. Okay, so we are the largest gypsum show cave in the entire world and the only one in the United States. So you probably won't ever get to go on a tour in another cave quite like this one. So, a little bit of a rare experience today. Try not to put my light around. Guys, don't reach up and touch the ceiling in this area because there are still bats hanging out in these cracks. So I don't want you to accidentally touch one. Now right now, we are in the room we started in. We're in what we call the fallout shelter room. Back in the late 60s during the Cold War, we were deemed a fallout shelter by the government. They brought us in barrels just like that, behind that wall right over there with them. So we could house 3,080 people down here for 2 weeks. That's a lot of people if you ask me. There was about 2,000 bats right here to begin the winter. Now they're all gone. They're all awake.
There's one over there.
There's one. The Lone Ranger over there.